No long intro. George Carlin.
Now we're going to lighten up a little bit. We're going to go back to advertising, and we're going to go on a little bullshit hunt. Little bullshit hunt. Going to look at some advertising lingo, especially food advertising. You know the people. Fresh, natural, hearty, old-fashioned, homemade goodness in a can.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of these words. Old-fashioned. When you hear old-fashioned, you're supposed to think, oh, this goes back to the old days. Right. The old days. Before we had sanitation laws. Before hygiene became popular.
I hope
Back
not.
when botulism was still considered a sauce. Homemade. You see homemade in the restaurants, too. Homemade soup. I don't care how much the amphetamine-driven waitress with the Marlboro lines in her face reminds you of your mother. The soup is not homemade.
It's not.
Unless someone is living in the kitchen. And if that's the case, I want to get a good look at this motherfucker. I want to check this guy for lesions, carbuncles, impetigo, pink eye, and ringworm.
Why carbuncles?
And head lice. At any time they add the word style to another word, someone is pulling your prick. Old style goodness. What does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. New York style deli. Means it's not located in New York. That's all it means, or they wouldn't have to say it in the first place. It's located in Calgary, and the owner is from Hong Kong. And the food tastes like things that the Bangladeshis throw away. Family-style restaurant. You know what that means? It means there's an argument going on at every table. Two people are crying, and the eldest male is punching the women.
Where is he eating?
Family style. Then you have gourmet. Here's another word the advertising cretins have completely wiped their asses with. Gourmet. Gourmet dining in a cup. Gourmet cuisine in a can. By the way, whenever you hear cuisine in place of food, be prepared to pay an extra 80%.
Yes.
Gourmet rolls, gourmet coffee, gourmet pizza. These things do not exist. You want to know what gourmet food? Toasted snail penises. Candied moose balls. Deep dish yak dick. Gourmet. It's the same with buttery and lemony and chocolatey. Real chocolatey goodness. You know what that means? No fucking chocolate.
Yeah.
And beware when they add the word flavored to another word. Lemon flavored drink.
That's
no
not lemon.
Fucking lemons.
Yeah.
Now, one more food word before I completely change the subject on you. Natural. This is directed to all you health food fiends and environmental nitwits and yuppie cocksuckers who are running around in your natural fibers. Your natural fibers. The word natural is completely meaningless. Everything is natural. Nature includes everything. It's not just trees and flowers. It's everything. A chemical company's toxic waste is completely natural. It's part of nature. We're all part of nature. Everything is natural. Dog shit is natural.
That's not true.
Just not real good food.
Okay. So a subscriber sent in this edit, and I liked it. I've yet to come away from watching a George Carlin bit without having something to talk about and seriously consider. And he's right. This was probably the lightest bit that I've ever seen out of him. If you guys have any more to share, please do. I usually end these videos by asking for recommendations for comedians that are on par or better than George Carlin. And a lot of people said Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Bill Hicks. And although I like each of those comedians separately, I don't really see a comparison, personally. But I'm still open, so if you have any more recommendations, please drop them down below. But this one had me thinking about how sometimes people see the word gluten-free and think that the product is healthy. And advertisement has a lot to do with that. But gluten-free doesn't necessarily equate to health. Yes, it doesn't have gluten, but there might still be unhealthy amounts of processing, preservatives, and additives, fats, sugars, etc. And sometimes companies just slap a gluten-free label on something that already didn't have gluten and then bring up the price. No sugar added is another one. That doesn't mean that the product doesn't have sugar. It could be made of sugar. It just means that they didn't add any more sugar. They may have added another artificial sweetener, though. So that one's very misleading and worth looking into if you're into nutrition or just curious. Sometimes these labels are just a Wittgenstein word game, and pharma companies are like that as well. I think it was 75% of commercials in the US are pharmaceutical advertisements, or at least that was the case back in 2020. And those commercials are a bit more insidious because they put positive imagery on the screen while waiting until the last 30 seconds to tell you all of the horrible side effects that a certain drug has. And then they hope that you're watching and not really paying attention to what's said. Something like, side effects include internal bleeding, drowsiness, cancer, and death. Think twice before operating heavy machinery, but ask your doctor if it's right for you. So, key takeaway, think twice about advertisements, decode the language, because ultimately they're just trying to sell to you. And we can thank George for that gentle reminder that I didn't know I needed today. Anyway, a literary recommendation. I can't think of anything that directly relates to food advertising or any of the other themes he touched on here, but I'm sure some of you will. So if you want to let me know a title, please do. Other than that, this weekend I did finish a book called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Tom Wolfe. It follows Ken Kesey, who was the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is another great book, and his followers called the Merry Pranksters in 1960s California and Oregon, mainly, while they did psychedelic acid tests. And then it intersects with Hell's Angels, The Grateful Dead, Allen Ginsberg. It was a curious story, and a lot more to it than I gave you in that brief summary, but it's very gonzo journalism-esque, so it could be good if you're a fan of Hunter S. Thompson. We could actually talk about gonzo journalism for quite a while, so I'll just stop that there. But let me know what you think about any of this, and as always, thanks for watching with me.